JDBC preferred statement with MySQL database. Preferred statements are used to execute a parameterized query and also improves the performance of an application, because if we use preferred statement, the query will be compiled only once. To understand more about the preferred statement, first create a table in the MySQL database. To create a table in MySQL database, we can use either MySQL Workbench or MySQL command line client. I am using MySQL Workbench to create a table in MySQL database. Then click on MySQL connections, provide username and password for MySQL database. Once it is connected with the MySQL database, then we can create a table. So I'm going to create a table in the database schema KLU, tables, right click on it, choose the option create table. Here enter the table name, employee, and create columns here, employee ID, and data type of employee ID is an integer and it will be the primary key and also not null value. Create one more column, name of an employee, data type worker. If you want to change, you can change by choosing this option. We can change the data type. So let me fix worker for name, then apply. It generates a query to create a table in the database schema KLU in the name employee with two fields, employee ID and name. Primary key will be the employee ID. Next, apply, finish. Okay, now we can find out the table employee under tables in the KLU database schema. So now I'm going to retrieve the data by executing the select query from the table employee. KLU dot employee is the table name. So initially the table is empty. Now we are going to implement the preferred statement concept in Red Hat Code Ready Studio and perform the CRUD operations using preferred statements. Open Red Hat Code Ready Studio, create a new Maven project and choose the architect type. Click on next. Maven archetype, quick start. Then choose the Maven archetype quick start version 1.4 from Apache Maven archetype. Click next. Provide the details of group ID, project name and package. I named the project as JDBC preferred statement. So JDBC PS I entered in the artifact ID. Then finish. It creates a directory structure based on the architecture type we selected. Yeah, now the directory structure is ready. So explore the directory structure. Then find the file form.xml. Open the file form.xml. Then upgrade the Maven compiler source from 1.7 to 1.8. So then add dependency for MySQL connector under the dependency stack. To find dependency details of MySQL connector, open your browser and visit the site mvnrepository.com. There, search MySQL connector. Then this is the link where we can find the details of MySQL connector dependency. So click on the link MySQL connector and select the latest version 8.0.29 and copy the details of MySQL connector dependency and paste it in the form.xml file. So under the dependency tag, the dependency is added for MySQL connector. Then save, close the file form.xml choose the project root directory, right click on it, and then Maven update project. Once the update, then click OK. Once the update process is completed, then we can find out the jar file in the Maven dependencies, the name MySQL connector Java version 8.0.29. So now we are going to implement the preferred statement concept of JDBC to perform CRUD operations on the table employee which we created in the MySQL database. So choose the build path source main Java. There we can find out the package name and then the Java file in the name app.java. So open the file app.java. So remove the command line and import the package. Import java.sql.asterisk. So then create object for connection interface to establish the connection to the MySQL server. Connection is an interface. So the method get connection required three parameters: connection URL, username and password. So this is the connection URL for MySQL database. Second parameter is an username. The default username of MySQL database is root, and the third parameter is the password of MySQL database. So now we need to handle the exception. So then create a parameterized query. Insert into the table name employee values. The table employee which we created in the MySQL database has only two columns, employee ID and name. Employee ID is declared as integer and name is declared as varchar. So there are two columns in the table. One is employee ID and another one is name. So once the parameterized query is constructed, then create object for preferred statement interface. And call the method preferred statement and pass the query as an argument to the method preferred statement. Then use the methods of preferred statement interface. Set int. The reason is employee in the employee table, the first column is employee ID. It is declared as an integer, and the second column is a name declared as varchar. So that I'm going to set value for the employee ID. So for the parameter sequence number 1, and the value as 5848 employee ID. Then set value for second column, that is name declared as varchar. So statement dot, instead of set int you should use set string method. The parameter sequence number is 2 and the value is name of an employee. So then we need to call the method execute for the interface preferred statement. So statement dot execute. This method will execute the parameterized query. Insert into employee along with the values employee ID and name. Then Give an acknowledgement to the user whether the operation is completed successfully or not. So it is in the form of string. So use system.out.println to convey the message to the user. Records inserted. Finally, close the connection object. Okay, then we can run this code. Before that, open MySQL workbench and execute the select query for the table employee. So now the table is an empty. There is no record found in the table. So after executing the Java code which we implemented prepared statement, so right click on the editor, go to the option run as Java application, then click OK. In the console, we got the acknowledgement records inserted. Then we can check the table in the MySQL workbench by executing the select query one more time. Now in the result, the data will be available in the table. Employee ID and the name is inserted successfully using prepared statements.